A very good evening to our viewers. Thank you for joining us tonight on the Evening Review. My name is Taiwan Jabela, your host. Tonight on the platform, we are joined by Namibian Ombudsman Advocate Basilius Dyakugha, and he is here to help us understand, again, as a matter of fact, to remind us of the mandate of his office, especially in the build-up to the November election, when rights of people are likely to be in sharp focus again. Some people trying to trample upon those as we all scramble for that vote. Thank you, Ombudsman. It's always a pleasure to have you. It's election year. There are maybe 4 months left only. I'm wondering if your office as Ombudsman plays any role in either just to safeguard or even just to remind us of the need to protect the rights of people in a period like this.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a good question. As you know, the Ombudsman's office also have a component of a human rights mandate.
Yeah.
And that is that human rights component where we zoom into the rights and freedoms of the citizens as stipulated in the Namibian Constitution. And we also wanted to advocate for the rule of law and good governance, because that's what the Constitution is all about. And as such, we wanted to remind the citizens, because our role is also really to remind the citizens about their rights as stipulated in the Constitution. And one of the important rights is now the one that you mentioned. Election year is this is the election year. And in terms of the Constitution, Article 1, Sub-Article 2 is clearly the most powerful rights the citizens have, which stipulate that all power shall rest in the people, and that includes elections. So I think it is, for us as an office, good to remind for them that they must go and exercise that right. Yeah.
And those that do not heed your very humble and welcome call, what happens? Do you have any powers in the event that rights are abused, or do you just speak and say, please don't do that, and it ends there?
Well, the beauty about the Constitution and the human rights concept is that people can have that freely to exercise those rights. But also they have the right to freely not to exercise it. But for us as an office now, it's just really to tell them that in this case, what is the difference between those two freedoms, right? Because when we talk about right in terms of election, it's not just a right, it's also a responsibility and a duty of a citizen. Because if you don't vote, there is one professor or a lawyer, American lawyer, who's also a founder of a Citizen University in the in America. He says that voting is not voting; it's actually voting, because what you are doing is like abdication, and abdication is giving your sovereign power to other people. You know, in this case, when you don't vote, you are like giving the other people the opportunity to take advantage of your absence. So they are going to vote something that you did not like. And it's like when you send people, go and plan for me. So they will plan for you, but guess what? They will not plan enough for you. They will just plan as they think maybe it's enough for you.
Absolutely.
But then later you cannot blame anyone because you had the opportunity to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ombudsman, for clearing that part. I think it's important. Now, related again to human rights, we have many things going on in the country at the moment, huge conversations around, for example, the sodomy ruling that was made in the court just the other day. It has stirred emotions. I'm just wondering if your office has been approached by anyone, either on the side of those who are opposed to sodomy or those that are for it, to let me rephrase my question. So that ruling is out, but there is, for example, this notion that government is trying to, I am mixing things now. What is your office take on that judgment? Because we know that the Attorney General was opposed to it. So many forces came, and this one single citizen who did that, and it came. Do you consider it as a human right issue, or as some are calling it a cultural abomination?
Well, it's a very complicated question, both a legal question and also possibly a social issue question. But I think the short answer is really the judiciary is an independent arm of the state, organ of the state, so they interpret the laws, and the legislature there now to make the laws, and then the judiciary interpret the laws. But I think if you look at it from a legal point of view as a lawyer, this is my reading from the judgment, is that this law is two ways. Yeah, some call it that it is a common law offense, but it is also in the statute, and you can remember the court enumerated the statutes where it is stipulated there. But the other statute, which is actually the main one, is actually the Immoral Practice Act. In that act, there is 3 Immoral Practice Acts which is prohibited there or criminalized, and the first one is the one of two men having unnatural sex. The other one is having sex with a woman who's not normal. I don't remember that term they use there, but I don't like that term. In fact, they use the word idiot, kind of, that terminology. And then the other one is having sex with animals, the Bayesian sex. So you can see that the one they removed is the one of unnatural sex. I think from the legal point of view, I think where the court come from, I'm not saying the court judgment is 100% correct, but it's how I read it, is that this crime, it has been on the books, but it's like absolute. It has not been used in practice. So, because we know there are men who live together as husband and wife, and we don't prosecute them. So what is the use keeping the law on the statute book? So probably that was the approach from saying this is a kind of a law which we just keep on the book and is for decoration or whatever. But it is a very complicated subject matter. I think, as I said, it's mixed there with a social issue, and also with the values of the people of Namibia as a nation. So it's something that one can really not argue in one way, or another, and you say this is the correct way or this the other. So it's a combination of issues in that subject matter.
Related to that, Ombudsman, is that the Ministry of Home Affairs has now brought an amendment bill to National Assembly, the Marriage Act, which seeks to leave no loopholes around the definition of marriage. And to many, this is perceived to be an attempt by government to not adhere. Of course, I think they are adhering now to the Supreme Court ruling of last year on same-sex marriages. But once this law is implemented, it will then stop adhering to that ruling. Is there a good practice that when courts rule in a particular way, those with power can just come up with laws that will undo those rulings?
Well, maybe not as ombudsman now that I'm answering these questions, but as a lawyer and as a citizen.
Absolutely.
The first reference is really the Constitution. It's clearly defining the roles of these three organs of the states. And when you look at the legislature, Article 44 of the Constitution clearly gives the supreme powers to the National Assembly to make any law. Underline the word any law. But nonetheless, subject to the Constitution. So people shouldn't fear when they wanted to exercise those constitutional power they have to make any law. So all what you need to watch is whether that law will pass the constitutional test. So the debate, while that exercise is being done or being utilized by the National Assembly, is really not helpful. We're supposed to watch and see how far they will go with their luck in case they are wrong. So I think that's how we take it from there. And then the second one is really, even though the National Assembly has all those supreme power in terms of the Constitution to make any law, but they also somehow have to watch their shoulder in terms of that sovereignty, because the voters are watching, right? And they are the one who will say, we don't like what you are doing in that when we give you this power, because you are not actually representing us, right? And the other way also around, they will also say, okay, you seem to just being quiet and put us into a situation where we cannot get out while we have voted for you to do something in that August House. So these are the dynamics, and the third component of it is also the world is now a global village. We have international bodies like the United Nations. We have all these conventions that we have signed. That one also limit the powers or the sovereignty of the National Assembly to pass any law as it is stated in the Constitution. Because if they have signed on those many other treaties, obviously they have also to make sure that they are in compliance with those treaties. So that's maybe my take on that question.
Absolutely. We go for a short break and then return with Ombudsman Basilius Dyakugha. The conversation continues on the evening review. Just again quickly on that subject of the court ruling in a particular way, and then the legislature comes up with something to sort of counter it. I just want to remind you, Advocate, and you would know this very well, that how the whole fish rod scandal emerged, that the fisheries minister gave himself power, took away, allegedly, of course. I think that was, it's not even alleged, it's true. He took fishing quotas from some private companies, and then he handed them to the state fishing company. Then the private companies challenged him in the High Court, and the court ruled in favor of those private companies, saying that he had no power to wrestle away these quotas just like that. And then he, in conjunction with the Law Reform Development Commission, then worked on a new law, the 2015 Fisheries Act, which then gave him the powers to do exactly what he was told not to do. But now it was it was now legally allowed, because the new act allowed him to do that. And this is where I'm arguing about the principle, to say that is it correct is it a good practice in law that whenever you lose a court case, you simply change the law so that you can run ahead with what you wanted to do?
Yeah, it's a very tough one, tough question, because the reason is, in politics, you can't separate the economic concept, or to empower your people economically.
Yeah.
And you have to do it through political process or through legal process. So this is basically why politicians take these two routes. So when they fail in the political process, they can use the legal process. So that's actually the rule of game of politics. I'm not saying that constitutionally it is something that is allowed, but it is something that as a nation we have to stop through our legal processes. So if we have experienced that scenario and nobody have challenged it, then it means we have accepted it, that it is fine for politicians to get away with what they want to do in terms of satisfying their constituency, in terms of empowering them economically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, related to that, Advocate, in November last year, you went to the Vindu Correctional Facility. You were invited by the fish rot accused people, and they were telling you a lot of stories. We saw videos, and Saki Shangala and everybody else. How did that come about? We don't see you going to jail a lot.
Well, we do unannounced visit to some interesting human rights institutions where some of the citizens are kept, particularly in detention, so that we can see the conditions and hear from their treatment in those institutions. This is basically what happened, and they then had to bring up these complaints that they brought up, because you must remember, most of among the fish rot accused, despite Saki Shangala was the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General, meaning he's a lawyer himself. Former Minister Bernard Esau is also a lawyer, trained person. He studied law. So they know the laws of the country, they know the constitution. So they have tried their luck through the normal processes of the court to get what they were demanding. You know, back in the time, if you remember, they were demanding for facilities where they could prepare their cases and internet. These are all can be referred to as facilities.
Yes.
And back then, I think the correctional facilities and the prosecutor general, they were playing the referring games. The correctional facilities, the Correctional National Service, they will refer to the PG that they are the one who must decide on that one. Then the PG says, no, it is the correctional facility who must decide on that one. And eventually they didn't know where to go. That's how they came to my office and say, maybe I can intervene.
Yeah. So, because then in April this year, you then wrote a letter to Commissioner Hamnyela detailing the complaints. No, this was different. This was about these guys being moved to what is regarded more as a common area of the prison where your supposed common criminals and what are there. Why did you think that it was important to intervene? They are not the only people accused. There are others. Of course, I saw your reason saying that, it's a sensitive matter, high-profile matter. They are being seen to have deprived people of their jobs and livelihoods and whatnot. But there are people in jail who even killed or raped, or very dangerous people, but we've never seen them being kept, your office actually intervening in this one.
Yep. Well, every case has its own merit. And for us, any complaint if we see that there is merit in investigating the matter, we do our work to hear the other side. The core issue there, what my office received is that they were not engaged, that this is going to happen. And obviously, when somebody comes to complain to you, they tell you what you want to hear. They will not tell you the whole story. So initially, that's what they told us, that we were not briefed as why they are moving us. It is just like all of a sudden arrangement. And that is now bring us to our role as every decision that a public official must take, it must be fair. Yeah. You must hear the person that is going to be affected by that decision. And that's why we actually got involved. But later, even when we engaged with the management team of the correctional service at the very, very high level, they didn't tell us that this arrangement comes a long way back. They have been renovating this facility with the intention to bring some of these accused persons that side. Until their boss came, Commissioner General Hamnyela came to my office. That is the time he disclosed that no, this arrangement is an old arrangement. But whether it's an old arrangement or it was a off-sudden arrangement, it's just something that they didn't really discuss with the accused person. And that's where we left it when we were told that no, it's actually not a new idea. It has come a long way. So that's how we got involved in that complaint.
Okay. The final question to you then, Advocate, is perhaps to say that so that intervention, is good to hear that the matter is now sort of parked, you are no longer pursuing it.
Yeah.
But the fact that Saki Shangala was your boss in the Ministry of Justice prior to you becoming Ombudsman, did it in any way influence all these things, you visiting them in November last year, you writing to the Commissioner General of Prisons in April to say that the treatment of these guys was not up to standard? Is it in any way influenced by the fact that this is your former boss and you're just biased towards him?
Very good question. Not at all. You know, when you are in a position of constitutional authority, you just answer to your constitutional position, because you cannot embarrass the system by reacting to something else other than the law. So being an ombudsman is really something that you need to understand, that you are just answerable to the constitutional mandate, and you are not for or against anybody, whether it is the government themselves or in particular individual, high-profile individual. No, not at all. This is the same scenario with the judges of the High Court. They just don't really consider who is actually appearing before them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ombudsman, for coming.
Okay, welcome.
Yeah. That's Ombudsman Basilius Dyakugha. He is briefing us about the mandate of his office, especially in this election year, and also giving us in his personal capacity some views around issues that have been ruled in court, and also some movements there in Parliament. Thank you for watching.